are listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. This is episode 123, where we talk about the changes we've made in our mental mindset, carrying concealed, and the gear we carry every day due to the new normal that people are facing all across the country. As always, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy episode 123 of Range Minded, the changes we've made in the new normal. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. My name is Mark Long, and I am joined as always by
Steve Zimmerman.
The one, the only, the man, the myth, the Billy Goat.
From the far east. Yeah, we were just talking off air about I have the longest facial I've ever had, and still going.
Now, is that quarantine related, or do you think you'd be doing it either way?
Oh, I don't care about quarantines. I've been working nonstop.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I just got bored. I think I've been growing it since April. I think I shaved in April.
That's impressive.
And I haven't shaved again. Well, I shouldn't say I haven't shaved again. It is just from the bottom lip down.
Right. And so no mustache at all.
No, I like it without the mustache, actually.
It's not a bad look. It's a very metal
maybe
look.
It looks a little goofy. Yeah. Imagine Lars from Metallica.
Yeah.
Only poor and bald and 20 years younger.
Do you play the drums?
Actually, no.
Unfortunate.
I've teetered with them or tinkered with them.
Sure. Yeah.
No, I do not.
Well, that's okay. We still appreciate you. I remember I tried to grow my beard out once, and it didn't look good. I looked homeless. So.
Well, it's better than being actually homeless.
That is true. Because
and you could. I was going to say you can stand out front of Walmart and get some extra cash.
Well, I'll tell you what, I don't really want to be anywhere right now because the world is a little bit crazier, than we're used to.
It is stupid.
And that's what we're talking about today. Just how our defensive ideas have how our defensive tactics have changed, how carrying has changed, how our mental mindset has changed with all this crazy stuff going on.
And I guess the question should be to our listeners, have you changed yours or should you change yours?
Right. I guess it just depends on where you are. I think this question is very geographically dependent.
Yeah, I would say that's probably pretty accurate.
I think there's maybe some base level things that maybe everybody can agree on, as kind of a baseline. But I think it's very, if you're in a big city as opposed to a small town, as opposed to in the middle of nowhere, it's going to be very, very different depending on your geographic situation. So,
yeah.
But you were actually.
Would you
go ahead?
Would you say that no matter where you live, that maybe the sentiment is people are being a little bit more cautious and observant?
I would say so, and I would also venture to say that people are more on edge, just in general.
Yeah,
and that's no good.
Anyway, sorry, you were going to say something.
Oh, I was just going to say it's. I think there's a baseline that everybody kind of should be at, but like I said, it's geographically dependent. If you are in a big city or a small town or whatever, I think there's some things that everybody can agree on, and that everybody should basically know. You know what I mean? And the first of that really would be just basic firearms or basic firearms, operation and manipulation, and as well as, kind of the mental mindset of carrying, whether you carry or not.
Yeah.
Because the first thing that comes to mind.
And I think. Oh, yeah, sorry.
No, that's okay. The first thing that comes to mind for me is that as a concealed carrier, we've talked about it before, where you have to basically be able to walk away from every argument, every taunt, anybody trying to give you crap throughout the day or to goad you into a confrontation. You have to kind of defer and deflect and be able to walk away from that. And I think a lot of people just in general, whether you carry, whether you don't carry, whether you're a firearms person or not, could probably benefit from learning that mindset and adopting that mindset, because I think there's just a lot of people with a lot of crazy tempers out there right now. And a lot of people are very emotionally charged.
Yeah, I would agree. I think it's important to understand that all the recent, I don't want to even call them shootings, like the Kyle Rittenhouse and that one in Portland where the Trump guy got shot. I think it's important that all those things could have been avoided if they just didn't go to those places. Right? I think the first step to really avoiding any kind of danger is just don't go there.
Right.
If you know there's a protest, or maybe some kind of a danger or whatever, in the city near to you, just don't go. Like, avoid it. Even though I can understand, like, you want to be a patriot or whatever, you want to stand up for your rights and be there in support of the police or whatever, but just understand that things can turn south quickly. And like you're saying, as a concealed carry holder, we have to hold ourselves to a different standard. So why dance the line on being a place where you may have to use a firearm? If you want to protest, like, we have the right to protest, we have the right to assemble. Sure. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But you just got to put that in the calculation where could there be violence? Am I going to a place where I may have to use that firearm? And then if you do, you have to be able to verbally articulate the danger and justify your actions after that shooting. So I would say step one would be just avoid those places.
Sure. And you know what? I would say to take that in a different step is that if you don't want to maybe avoid those places, maybe your convictions are that you want to express your, right to protest and to assemble publicly, maybe, don't bring a firearm just to avoid any confrontations or whatever, and have an exit strategy. I meant to put those in opposite orders where, have an exit strategy no matter what, whether you're carrying a firearm or not. But I think sometimes if you're not carrying a firearm, then depending on the kind of person you are, you would be more likely to find an exit and get away from the situation faster rather than deciding to try to stay and fight if you have a firearm on you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think that comes with, I know we beat the education horse to death all the time, but I think being in a class over and over again, taking different classes, that helps that situational awareness to know, hey, this is getting a little out of hand.
Sure.
Or, hey, even the beginning, like, I'm not going to go any farther into the crowd than right here because I know my pickup's 2 blocks away, and I know I'm going to get there without too much resistance. So I'm going to stay right here. So education is key to observing what's going on around you.
Right. Well, and situational awareness is one of those big things.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably the biggest thing I've changed right now. I mean, I try and carry every day, no matter where I'm at. Like, I try to keep something on me.
Right.
Now, notice I didn't say a gun, but I try to keep some kind of a tool with me, or within a few feet of me all the time.
Sure.
But what I think I've heightened for me so far is I'm spending way less time on my phone. I'm spending way less time, in the white. Right. No matter where I'm going. If I'm in a restaurant, I'm looking at everybody. I'm watching the cars, like, more than normal. Like, we've had this conversation before about what my son and I do, like, at restaurants and walking around the malls.
Sure,
but I think I've pumped it up just a little bit. Which I think is super important because we don't know what, when, or where, how.
I mean, I am 100% more situationally aware of what's going on and who's around, and even just walking, like, from the grocery store out to the parking lot, no matter what time of day or anything like that, because you just never know, you know what I mean? And it's a good exercise to have anyway. But it's not easy, it's not an easy thing to keep up with sometimes.
No, and you really just have to start doing it. I
Yeah.
mean, you just can't. You can't just say, "Oh, I'll worry about that later." You just, even if you make mistakes, do it like we talked about the game, right? You go in the restaurant and you say, "Oh, how many people with red shirts on, or where's the egg?" Just make it a game with your significant other, or like with my son and I, we do it, or with some buddies when you go out to the bar or whatever. Just start doing it, and that you'll get better at it, and you'll find yourself seeing more things than you thought you saw. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it almost becomes automatic. And you brought up a good point too, where I'm going to use it to piggyback off of the point that I said, where if you are going to, any kind of demonstration or something like that, when I said don't bring a firearm, that doesn't mean don't be prepared. Right. You could bring, pepper spray or a knife or some kind of defensive tool if you wanted to. But one other thing that I think has been very, very, on the forefront of my mind, at least, is to put together a med kit and carry that with me kind of wherever I go, and to take some medical classes on top of that.
Yeah. Which we keep talking. We're going to do, we will have a show on a medical trauma class here shortly.
We just want to make sure we have an expert.
Hopefully shortly. Yeah, because I don't have enough expertise to call myself an expert on this at all.
Right.
Experience, I guess. But absolutely, you should have that ability anyway, that knowledge anyway, even a very rudimentary knowledge of CPR or whatever. It's just good to have.
Yeah, and you probably should be carrying a med kit, because even if you have, let's say you're not carrying anything else except for a small med kit or something, and you're at a demonstration, whatever side you're on, and you come across somebody that's injured and you can't do anything to help them, that's not a great situation to be in,
No. And obviously you can't carry a med kit big enough for every possible scenario.
Right.
But at least create an IFAC, an individual first aid kit for you to carry. And then if by chance you need to use that for somebody else, there's still something there.
Yeah. And I mean, even if you fall down and scrape your knee, you've got kind of a boo-boo kit, if nothing else,
The bug out boo-boo kit.
Yeah, exactly. So, but that's a good question too. Have you decided to carry more gear with you as you go along? Maybe instead of just carrying a concealed firearm, maybe you carry a bag with you wherever you go instead of maybe just what's in your pockets?
So the other couple weeks ago, we went out of town, not too far from here.
Sure.
For some family stuff. Anyway, I decided to carry a small single sling backpack with me.
Sure.
And in there, it was hot where we went, so I had some bottles of water in there, but I carried some other life-saving devices just in case, like completely nothing that I would carry otherwise.
Sure.
But something that seemed benign enough that I didn't think it would be a problem, or I felt guilty maybe of carrying or whatever. But also a device that I knew if I had to deploy, that it would get people's or the bad person's attention. You would be
in an okay spot,
as cryptic as possible, right? But it wasn't a firearm. I'll put it that way. It was not a gun, but it was another one of my handheld devices that comes in handy.
And I think that's one of the things that you can think about, is that you don't always necessarily have to have a firearm handy. I mean, we've talked about it before. It's a lethal force thing. It's a life or death situation, but there's a lot of other situations that are a lot more likely that you could be in. That's not necessarily life or death. It might just be a hairy situation one way or the other. And it doesn't hurt to be prepared for that,
Yeah.
I've actually watched, go ahead.
I was going to say, and I think it's fair to say that some of these situations, I mean, we've talked about it before. You don't just go straight to the gun, right?
Sure don't.
In any kind of situation, like we mentioned in the very beginning, is you need an exit strategy. The idea is to leave, if you can leave. But sometimes, it doesn't mean though that, I can't escape, I'm just going to shoot the person. Well, that doesn't work either.
Right.
you need to meet the level of threat with the proper amount of force to stop the threat. And sometimes that could be pepper spray. I mean, it could be just the sound of a taser. And I know, like, when I hear the taser, that gets your attention.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to be a gun, right? Just like
no, it sure doesn't. And that's what I was going to say is, so I, one of the YouTube channels that I follow is The Lucky Gunner.
Yep.
And I was interested that he came up with a video called the Backpack Gun Project, where he talks about an AR and a 9mm AR-15 platform gun that he actually deploys out of a backpack. Which sounds a little like overkill depending on the situation you're in, but he goes through kind of all of that, what if situations and what his reasoning is behind it and when he decides to carry that firearm in that way. But what was really interesting to me, and he kind of glossed over it a little bit in the video, is that he talks about how in the backpack there's enough room to carry this, the firearm that he has, plus his med kit, plus bear spray. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and he goes, because not every situation is, pulling out a firearm, it's a do or die thing. And I was like, bear spray? Like, he goes, that's more than enough to get yourself out of any, terrible situation, be that as it may. And he brought up a good point where, if you're in a, let's say you're maybe let's say you're in a big city. We talked about the geographic differences or whatever, where you live and where I live, we're in relatively small towns compared to major cities. And so we don't really have to commute through heavily populated areas, maybe to go to work or maybe to get from, get back home or something like that, or to go to the grocery store.
Right.
There are some people, especially in huge major cities like Chicago, New York, LA, Portland, Seattle, any of those places where maybe you don't have a car and maybe you have to walk to the grocery store to get your groceries or to get something that you need or go to the doctor or whatever. And you just don't have a car because that's not, not necessarily what you have. Or you don't need a car in the way that you live, but you still want to be able to protect yourself, especially because maybe in between the grocery store and where you live, there's a demonstration going on and there's police officers, right up in the face of protesters of some kind or another. And that's the only way you can go to get to the grocery store or to the doctor or whatever. And you could be caught kind of, I hate to say the word in the crossfire, but you could be caught in the middle or in between those two groups. And what are you going to do? And what are you going to have prepared to get out of that situation?
Well, and the possibility of having a flash mob. I mean, that's what you're kind of alluding to is sometimes those demonstrations in those big cities, they just kind of erupt. They just happen. And,
stuff can pop off.
You could be in the mall for 45 minutes and come out and it's not the same as when you walked in. And that's what you're saying is like, you need to have options. And I like that he mentioned bear spray. And I think I'm going to actually, I don't carry pepper spray. I was watching a video from John Correa of a road rage incident. He posted this video not too long ago where the pepper spray definitely de-escalated the situation.
Really?
This it was in Russia. This dude gets out. It's a few minutes of video. The guy cuts this other guy off, and obviously, you can kind of guess the scenario about how they react. And the aggressor gets out of his car, and he comes up to this guy in the car that happens to have the dash camera, and whatever words are said, it doesn't matter. You kind of get the gist just by the body language of what the guy wants to happen, but then he gets a face full of pepper spray, and you could see that stopped the situation right away.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy's he was soaking wet with pepper spray.
Oh man.
And the victim, I guess in that case, just drove off, no harm, no foul,
and that was it.
Yeah.
Have you ever been around pepper spray at all?
Yeah, a little bit.
It's not great.
Actually, I have the range I used to work at here. They used to teach OC classes.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
But they would start with training canisters, which is obviously way better,
right?
To train with. But the end of the class, and I never took the class, but the end of the class, you get sprayed.
Ugh.
So you understand that it's not a toy.
Right. Yeah, I was in a college dorm once, and somebody decided to spray a little bit of pepper spray on the corner because they had it, just to see what it was like. And about 15 seconds later, there was about half a dozen people in the dorm, and they were like, "What is that?" And everybody starts coughing and get out of the room, but we kept coughing, and even just spraying a little bit away from the direction of everybody else, and everybody started coughing. It was terrible.
Yeah, that capsicum. So, if, just so you understand, like, pepper spray is just that. It's they use a portion of the plant, a pepper plant,
right,
or the fruit of the plant, I guess, and it's kind of concentrated, and it is very agitative to the lungs and eyes. Like, it attacks the mucous membranes and everything. It's pretty cool. It's effective.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's lethal, but it's definitely discomforting, and you don't want to be anywhere near it when it's deployed. So, I mean, I think a lot of people maybe poo-poo pepper spray as a defensive tool, but it's not anything to laugh at. I wouldn't want to be sprayed by it. That's for damn sure.
Well, and there's definitely some downsides to pepper spray, conventional canisters, because it's an aerosol. If it's a windy day and you happen to be downwind from the bad guy, there could be some unintended consequences. You could end up being the victim of the spray yourself.
Right.
So there are some other options. Kimber made, and I don't know if they make it anymore. It's basically looked like a little Derringer, almost a little pistol with two canisters in it.
Oh, sure.
And it was a gel instead of a mist.
Oh, interesting.
And it would stay. Yeah, it would shoot like 35 feet with like a 3-inch gel blob. And it seemed to be pretty effective just for that reason, for the wind,
Sure. Not a terrible idea.
Excuse me. Yeah. But the bear spray, that's just a big old canister of pepper spray. And I imagine it may be a little more potent even.
I'm sure
it is.
For
sure.
I'm sure it is. Yeah, I don't know for sure either, but I would say it's probably a little more potent and a little more concentrated for sure. So, but I was just surprised, that somebody brought that up, that you don't necessarily have to always think about deploying a firearm. There are a lot of other options before that you can deploy to get yourself out of a situation. Because remember, that's the goal of anything where, whether it's, you're being, stuck up in a robbery or something like that, just during a random day or random night, you turn down a wrong corner or something like that. Or if, you're caught in between a riot or whatever, and, you have options, and the more options that you carry with you, the better, I think, equipped you're going to be, and the more level-headed you may be as well.
Yeah. And an alternative to pepper, I was just thinking about this. There's an alternative to pepper spray. Say you're in an office or, even in a school, maybe some kind of a place where if you're an administrator or something, you can't have pepper spray for some reason,
Right.
You can actually use hornet spray as well.
Really?
Because it's not lethal to humans, but it definitely is unpleasant.
Sure.
So
yeah. That's not going to be great.
That's another option as well.
I never thought about that. Yeah. And you can get that at any kind of hardware store or anything.
And that stuff you can get it sprays in a stream to like 30 feet too. So
yeah,
you can aim it at somebody's face and they're not going to like it.
I've sprayed some hornets before, so I know how that goes.
It's not lethal. So
I would not want that anywhere near me though.
No.
So, well, hopefully it gives you some options about what you can do. I've thought about too, Nick Hoffer brought this up. We did this a few episodes ago, talking about maybe having a plate carrier or some of that extra gear that maybe you don't think you need. I know that folks like T-Rex Arms have really been pushing the idea of having kind of a modern citizen kind of loadout, I guess, or a kit, where they have a full carrier, a plate carrier, loaded up with mag holders and all that kind of stuff, a helmet and comms and all this kind of stuff, and a battle belt or whatever. And it's like, Yeah, in an ideal world, if I had a spare $3,000, that would be great.
That's the thing. Is like some of this cool guy stuff is so freaking expensive, and especially right now. Like before we got on the show, you guys know I bought a 5.7 Ruger 57.
Yes,
but I can't find that ammo anywhere. I've had that gun for almost a month, and it's still a virgin. It's still sitting in the box.
Man,
super frustrating. But I was telling Mark that I did find some on a major firearms auction site. Normally, that stuff in a normal time frame is about 40 to 60 cents a round, but some. You can hear my dog a little bit up there. Sorry.
Yeah.
But some advantageous entrepreneur decided to put it on there for $1. I think it's about $1.60 around now. So, and he's going to get it. They'll sell it for that because you can't find it anywhere. So right now it stinks to get to a place where you want some high speed, cool guy stuff because everybody's going to be charging a premium because everybody's concerned right now.
That is supply and demand. I mean, I think, and to Nick's credit, I give him a lot of crap, but to his credit, he did bring up having a battle belt more than anything else. If you had to buy any piece of kit, you could buy a battle belt other than anything else because you can hold a lot of stuff on there, and it's around your hips, which carries weight a lot better, and you're going to be able to move a lot more than if you carry you have some kind of plate carrier or whatever. You know what I mean? I think that's a great place for people to start if you are concerned, because carrying something like that in your trunk or, in the back seat of your truck or something like that, that's a lot more deployable than like a plate carrier or anything like that. Although admittedly a proponent of having armor, because if you're going to worry about being in a situation where you're going to have to deploy an AR or whatever, then you want every advantage you can. And if that's a case of having a plate carrier of some kind, even if you wear it under a hoodie or something like that in a riot kind of situation or a protest gone wrong, that's not the worst thing in the world, I'm going to admit. No,
I try to carry something in my vehicles, like if I'm going out of town or if even driving across the state, I have something that I can put on and take with me just in case, because you never know. Like there's countless scenarios, even to the point of like a Red Dawn scenario, right? So something crazy happens and you're going to have to kind of go it on your own for a little bit and hightail it somewhere on foot. I mean, there's not saying that that's going to happen, and I hope it doesn't happen, but you never know. You just you can't plan for everything.
So one of my favorites is my favorite kind of statements is from Paul Harrell. Good old Paul Harrell. He talks about how the likelihood of situations to happen, like a Red Dawn situation, probably not very likely to happen, but maybe
it's pretty low.
Maybe you get into a road rage situation, or you get into some kind of altercation where you're not able to, escape and you need to defend yourself. That's a little more likely. Or the fact that maybe, he goes, the fact that, 3 to 5 guys are going to break into your house with, armed rifles and full gear and blah, blah, blah. That's not very likely. But the fact that somebody on drugs or mentally disturbed may break into your home and you need to defend yourself, that's a little bit more, probable. And so having something to defend yourself, is probably a good idea.
Yeah.
So
and it's just a good idea. It's just a good idea.
And the other thing, it goes back to that old statement: it's better to have it and not need it.
And need it and not have it.
Exactly. So, I mean, it might be an expensive investment or whatever, but if you get a good plate carrier or a good battle belt, or both, that's something that can last you a long time. I mean, even if you wanted to go like full end of the world SHTF situation, you can buy some pretty good gas masks.
Hey, I know where I can get them too.
Yeah.
I didn't pay much for them.
You can fall down the rabbit hole about those things, and
oh boy,
But I mean, but then again, you think about maybe if you're walking home from work or something in a major city, and you start to see tear gas being thrown or something. You never. I mean, it all depends on what your situation is. Like I said, I think you and I are both pretty lucky, and most of the people in Idaho are pretty lucky that we don't have to worry about anything like that. Because I think most people here are kind of independent and do their own thing. People don't really gather in a huge crowd and upset the status quo. But if you're listening to this and you live in a major city or somewhere that's a little bit different, you have different considerations you have to think about, and on top of that, you have different laws you have to think about too.
Yeah, you need to make sure that you're maintaining order that way too. You don't want to become a felon just because you think you need to be.
Yeah. I mean, maybe there's a place where you're, in a city or a municipality where you're not allowed to conceal carry, and you do, and you use that in self-defense. You're going to run into some issues, even if you were fully justified,
Yeah. I mean, you have to articulate why you felt that way. You got to remember that too.
Right.
You got to be able to defend your actions.
Right.
Just for fun, while you're talking about, battle belts and whatever, I jumped on G-Code's website. I kind of like looking at their stuff. They actually have it's called a 2x2. It's not a plate carry, but it's just a chest rig that holds 2 AR mags and 2 pistol mags. And it's under $200.
There you go.
And it's not much, but it might be just enough. And it's not bulky or huge. It's pretty simple.
It's not bad. And sometimes simple is the name of the game, especially when it comes to mobility and being able to run. I mean, if you've got, real armor on or that stuff is heavy. We talked about that a little bit off air, where it's like you're a lot less mobile, and depending on your situation, if you fall into some water, maybe you're on the coast or something, you could sink real fast.
Yep. It could be a bad day.
Yeah. So you talked about ammo a little while ago and how you can't find ammo. There's a lot of people who can't find ammo right now. Have you been shooting less?
Yeah. In fact, I was just talking about this with my son today. We want to go shooting, but I've had to cut back a lot. There is still ammo out there. There's places you can find, like I went into a couple local retailers yesterday. I can still get AR. I can still get some 9. I can get 40. It's just there's restricted amounts of quantity, and it's a little bit more money than what we're used to paying.
Sure.
I wish I had a crystal ball to say, yeah, it's going to drop in the next 4 months, or it's going to go up for the next 6 months. My guess is it's going to probably go up in price a little bit here in the next little while, at least till the new year.
Yeah. Same.
But you can complain all you want about the prices. You're going to end up paying the money if you want to do it. Like, that's just the way it is right now.
Yeah.
So you might as well get it while you can get it, even in limited quantities. You can argue about the price all you want. You can piss and moan about spending $14, $15 a box for 9 or more. But at least you're going to have some 9mm, whatever cartridge you're shooting.
Sure. And we talked about it a while ago with having a stockpile a little bit and not shooting that. But maybe, just buying ammo every time you do go, and maybe you're spending, $5 or $10 more, but is it worth it to you to be able to shoot, or just doing dry fire practice more? I find myself doing a lot of dry fire practice right now, just when I have some spare time, or if I'm watching TV or whatever, or, if I think about it, I'll unload and move the ammo away from the handgun or whatever, and just do some dry fire practice just to make sure I still have my grip is the right way, and the trigger press is the right way. And that doesn't cost anything.
Right. And it's still effective. It does its job. And there's lots of good dry fire practice videos out there that kind of can give you an idea of things to focus on.
Definitely.
But it's still good to hone your skills. And honestly, I think that, and it does, I mean, it's proven it helps, if you're jerking the trigger or whatever, anticipating recoil, that helps a lot. Just dry firing that gun.
Yeah. And you can also get, you can get yourself a Mantis X or something like that. There's a lot of different kind of training tools for dry fire if you want to do that, where you don't have to spend the money on ammo, but you can spend the money to train at home either way.
Absolutely. And you should be keeping up on it.
Yeah. Yeah, same thing like you said with the situational awareness and just even looking around or whatever and maybe being a little bit nicer to people, because I think that's probably something that we could all do.
Yes.
And I think that's, because that was one of my other questions for you, is that there's so many, like I said at the beginning, people are so like wound very, very tight right now. I think everybody's baseline stress level is a lot higher than it should be. What can, not even just as a firearms enthusiast or as a shooter or concealed carrier, what do you think that we could do as people just to chill everybody out a little bit?
Well, I think being a grown up helps a lot. Like you're saying, most people are just miserable and upset. I think we mentioned this before. I was talking to a friend of mine that volunteers for QRU in a local town. And he was saying that, suicide calls, domestics, child abuse, all that stuff is up. People are tired of being stuck inside. People are getting agitated. And then we all have to go out and go shopping. People don't want to wear masks. People, are very passionate on both sides of the fence on that issue.
Yep.
Like you're saying, everybody is just on edge. Cooler heads will always prevail. Just chill out. I mean, I get really angry too sometimes when I go to town. But we don't want to be an aggressor. We want to try and be a nice even keel during the storm, because when we're calm, we have better situational awareness. We'll know the situation before it arises if we can see it, and if we're arguing with somebody about a stupid mask, we may not see a left hook coming in or something either. We're going to be too focused on what we think is the problem, and then there really is another problem happening.
Sure.
So first thing is to just be level-headed and courteous, man. Just be kind. I really think that's what's missing in the world right now, is just kindness.
Sure. And I think you bring up a good point where there are bigger things in the world right now than to be arguing over something silly, whatever you deem to be silly or not. And I'm not going to tell you. And I think, honestly, kind of as a point of pride in the Idaho way is just to, live your life the way that you want to, as long as you're not bothering anybody else, and let somebody else do the same. And so I think that, not bothering other people as they're living their life, I think is definitely something, not just as a concealed carrier, but as, just a genuine person. That's some good words to live by, Yeah,
I mean, it's hard sometimes because, sometimes we have to eat our own words, and sometimes we have to walk away even though we know we're right in a situation, or we feel like we're right in a situation. We just got to walk away. It's not worth the problem.
Exactly. And that's, like I said, that's the concealed carry mindset that you should be having. But at the same time, it's something that you want to keep in mind, I think, no matter what now, Yeah. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
But, I mean, is there anything else? Because you were the guy that suggested this episode. Is there anything else that you think has changed, that you've been doing differently? I mean, we've kind of covered gear selection. We've covered tactics and mental mindset and all that. Is there anything else that you have been that's been at the front of your mind?
It's kind of helped me, this whole thing, quarantine and stuff's kind of helped me put in perspective the importance of people, mostly family.
Yeah.
Spending more time with my family. But it's interesting to see the psychology of it all, how people are in situations. This, as stupid and terrible as this whole quarantine thing is, it could be much, much worse.
Sure.
I mean, we look back towards, how Berlin was during World War II, and what the populace of Germany had to deal with, during wartime or whatever. Like, our situation could be so much worse. Sure. And so to immediately go doom and gloom right now is a little silly, I think. But it does still help me realize that, my family and friends and like-minded individuals are important to keep close to you.
Definitely.
and you need a network, whether it be just your family or, boy, I don't want to make it sound like I'm not saying like join the militia or anything, because that's not what I'm saying. But it's good to have people in your community that you can rely on when things get tough.
Yeah.
And maybe situations like now help us see who those people are.
Definitely. I mean, you have to have a community and network of people, and people that you trust, whether that's, something, inconvenient or something catastrophic. I mean, there's got to be people that you have to depend on, and everybody has a different set of skills, and everybody has their own specialties. And I think that's something that maybe a lot of people don't think about. And if you have a nice network of people that you can depend on, whether in times of inconvenience or in times of crisis, that is going to serve you a lot more than just, necessarily bugging out or being on your own. Actually, John Lovell, the Warrior Poet Society, it was a great video, but the video title was a little clickbaity. He talks about how he doesn't have a bug out bag anymore because in a situation where he's at home, like he might have a get home bag or something like that, but in the situation, if something was really that bad, he's not going to bug out and abandon all of his friends and family and the people that he loves. They're going to stick together and have a network and have a defensive kind of, team of people that are like-minded, that have a varied skill set, and that can survive together. And I thought that was really, really poignant.
And think about the wisdom in that. Like,
right.
We think about all those people leaving California, moving to Boise or, somewhere other than California. But there's a side of it. It's like, why don't you just stay there and fight for your state? Like, why? Because look at John. John's not doing that. Like, he's going to fight for his home and his friends around him.
Right.
Why would you just see you guys? Well, sucks to be you. I'm outie.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a David and Goliath scenario, just like it is in California. Like, if it's just one person, it's not going to work.
Sure, it's not going to be
if it's just five. If it's 5 people, it may not work. But I guarantee that there's people that feel the same way you do about a lot of the things that are going on. You just got to be willing to put yourself out there and find those people.
Yeah.
Or honestly, you have to also be willing to realize that you may be wrong.
Yeah, and that you have to be open-minded and think about the reality of situations. That's another thing, is that, regardless of whether you have a group of people you trust or not, is that how prepared are you? I mean, do you have the gear that you need? Do you have the medical gear that you need or anything like that? Or can you be at your home for 2 weeks without going anywhere? I think it's this, the situation currently has shown kind of how fragile, society can be. Exactly. And how things can break down, whether you're in a town or a city or a rural area or whatever. I mean, let's say you are in a rural area, but maybe you travel to a city every once in a while, to get something, or because you have family there, and then, something hits the fan there at that city. You're not going to be able to go there anymore or whatever. There's a lot more interdependency, I think, in the country than people think. And, you have to sometimes, be able to rely on yourself. And there's some confidence that comes in that, in being able to rely on yourself or to have that network of people. But, what this has shown me is that there's a lot of places that my skill set and even the gear that I have is lacking, Yeah.
Oh yeah. 100%. I feel the same way. Like, honestly, like if I was to really think introspectively about even the guns that I own, right? What's in my safe right now?
Yeah.
Honestly, I should be just selling a bunch of my stuff and just keeping it simple.
Sure.
Sell everything but my Glocks, because that's what I'm most familiar with. And an AR or 2 or 3 or 5, whatever. Because why make it more confusing for, me and my family if we have to defend ourselves for some reason, right? Why not just keep everything consistent?
Right.
But because I like collecting guns, I probably won't do that. Whatever. But still though, you got to adapt. You got to understand that things can get crazy. And you're right, society is super fragile. I don't think it's crazy to have, 72 hours worth of food in your home just in case.
Right.
Some people think, oh, that's a prepper mentality, but it's the same people that are going to be doing crazy things to eat because they didn't think about something in advance. And honestly, I feel bad for the people in the big cities because if they lose power, or if truck drivers can't come in and stock the shelves in the grocery stores, they're not going to know how to survive because they've only gone to the grocery stores or restaurants to get food.
Sure. And some people, are in a food desert where, the nearest grocery store is a mile or more away. And if you have bedlam going on, it's, are you going to just carry even as much as maybe we'd like to think so, but are you going to carry an AR all the way to the grocery store slung across your back? And then, it's going to make you a huge target.
Well, and it makes me feel bad when you look at some of these riots that are going on in some of these inner cities. That's exactly the scenario that they're creating for the majority of those people that live there. They're burning down shops and gas stations and stuff and making it impossible for people that just have enough money to go, walk down the street to get the essentials. Well, that shop's gone. So now what are they going to do? Right. Well, sorry.
It's no good. Well, I think we've fallen down a rabbit hole enough and had enough doom and gloom, but maybe on an optimistic note, things will pick up as we get into the last quarter of the year here, and ammo will be cheap again.
Yeah,
because that's one thing to remember too.
I think. Well, we just talked about attitude and mindset not too long ago, and I think it's important that you keep a good perspective, keep a good attitude. And there's always a bright side. I mean, there's always opportunity to help somebody. There's always opportunity to grow. Just like we talked in a previous episode, you may not have ammo, but there's still classes being taught.
Right.
Take some classes, maybe med classes, survival, whatever. Take a class, learn, educate yourself. Amazon's still selling books. You could spend some time improving that gray matter, on top of your body there. To learn a little bit.
We talked about that with Adam Boyce last episode, where we recommended a lot of good books and a lot of good videos and a lot of good people to learn from. And the other thing too is that if we want to be optimistic, you can think about life after all of this uncertainty, where there's going to be 5 million or more new gun owners in the U.S. How are we going to help those people be good stewards of the Second Amendment, and how are we going to bring even more responsible gun owners into the fold that way?
Right. And there's also, and another way I look at the right side, there's going to be probably 3 million used guns on the market in the next 6 months.
There's also that. So maybe you save your nickels and dimes and you'll be able to find some cool stuff.
Yeah. Maybe I can buy some 5.7 ammo, freak.
Yeah. Yeah. From a guy who paid $1.80 a round for it.
Yeah, who realized he doesn't even have a 5.7.
I was just going to say, I'll tell you what, though, man, a P90, PS90 right now would not be the worst gun to have either.
No, they're cool. You were talking about that guy that set up his 9mm. Was it Ready Gunner?
Lucky Gunner.
Lucky Gunner. So I can't remember if it was Demolition Ranch or any one of those. They set up a Glock and a Roni. And that was his backpack gun.
There you go. That's a good idea.
And it was actually cool because he could still. It was Black Scout Survival. That's what he did. He had his Glock 17 and it with his holster and everything ready to go. Plus, he had the little Roni kit in the bag to go with it, so he could switch from handgun to little carbine setup, which you're going to be more effective with a little carbine.
Yeah.
Than you are a handgun.
And the trigger is going to be the same, rolling through because it's the exact same gun and. That's not too bad, man. Not too bad at all. So,
and they're kind of cool.
Yeah, definitely. Do we have one at the shop? I forget or not. I forget.
We used to. I don't know if we still do anymore.
I hope so.
Because that's what we had the Glock in.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So, well, I will say too, if you want to hear about a specific topic of an episode, we're happy to accommodate. Let us know, podcast@iishooting.com, or hit us up on Facebook and Instagram @rangeminded podcast. We have some exciting episodes coming up, some great ideas and some great people that we're going to talk to. So stick around for that and keep subscribed to us, because we're going to do what we can to help you out and try to weather this storm together.
Awesome.
So anything else,
hey, folks? You be safe.
Anything else you got, Steve?
No, I'm good right now.
Great. Well,
I was gonna say, take somebody shooting.
Yeah, take somebody shooting, and if be a good steward of the Second Amendment. We'll leave it at that. So thanks for listening. We'll talk to you next time.
Yeah, be safe out there.
See ya.
Thanks for listening to Range Minded. Find us online at Range Minded Podcast on Facebook, or send us an email at podcast@iishooting.com. We're always happy to get feedback, episode suggestions, whatever you want to send us, really. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.